Hey, it's DrPhil, and welcome back to Mystery and Murder, the podcast that goes beyond the headlines, because we want to unravel the darkest mysteries behind the cases that captivate us all. I'm asking you to join us as we delve into the minds, not just of the perpetrators, but also of the victims, exposing their psyches and the forces that impact both the victims and drive the actions of the perpetrators. Now, on our last episode, we began the harrowing story of Michelle Knight. Now, Michelle Knight was one of the 3 women abducted in Cleveland, Ohio, and held captive for an unimaginable 11 years. Now, think about that. Some young girl gets up on a given day and goes out to pursue the agenda for that day in her life, not knowing that she won't return home for 11 years. When we left off, Ariel Castro, the father of a girl Michelle knew, had offered her a ride, but instead of taking her where she needed to go, he lured her into his home, tricked her into going upstairs, and then bound and assaulted her, marking the beginning of Michelle's suffering as his prisoner for over a decade. Now, when you say that kind of real fast, it seems like, wow, how could that possibly seem okay? Someone lures you into their house and then upstairs. Well, you have to remember that his daughter Emily was someone that Michelle knew. So this wasn't some stranger. It was the father of someone that was at least an acquaintance. She knew Emily. And I'd like to note again that Michelle Knight now goes by the name Lily Rose Lee. But I will refer to her as Michelle for clarity in this story. No disrespect, and I'm not rejecting that she calls herself by a different name now. I'm just saying for the purposes of who she was at the time. And again, I want to point out these episodes do contain graphic details of sexual and physical abuse. Now, as Michelle bravely shared her story with me in our exclusive interview, I was struck by her remarkable composure while recounting the senseless pain and torment that she endured. To start us off, I want you to listen as she takes us back to the chilling moment she discovered that Ariel Castro now had her completely under his control. At this point, what are you thinking in your mind? You're hanging from this pipe.
That I'll never get out of alive.
Let's talk about when he comes back, how long before he took you down?
Maybe 24 hours.
And when he came back through the door, what did you think was going to happen then?
I thought I was gonna get killed.
And what did he do when he came back
Instead, he unties me, he takes me to the basement, and he ties me up to a pole with chains wrapped around it. The chains were so big, and he wraps it around my neck. He sits me down on the floor, and he says, "This is where you're gonna stay until I can trust you. Now, if I do it too tight and you don't make it, that means you wasn't meant to stay here. That means God wanted to take you." So he proceeded to put it around my neck, and then he tied it around my stomach, and he took my hands and bound it behind me. And he took a motorcycle helmet and he put it over my face to where I couldn't breathe at all. And later on, I didn't remember a thing because I had passed out. And when I finally woke up, he was not there. And I was searching around because I had went like this and broke the twisty ties that he had around my arm. There was no light, and I started looking around. So I finally found a pair of pliers and a wire cutter. So I started using it on the chain, and then I heard a car stop. This is when I got the chain from around my neck. He comes through the door and he sits there and says, "Why did you take the chain off?" now you're gonna be punished. And that's when he started hurting me.
In what way?
Sexually. And he took a pipe and he held it like this over my head and he said, if you scream, I'll ram this down your throat and I'll kill you. So I didn't scream, I didn't make a noise. I just laid there. The only thing I could say is let me go.
And when you would say, let me go, what did he say?
He said, when I get 2 other girls in the house, then I'll let you go. And I told him, no, you don't need to do that. I begged him not to bring any more there to suffer the hell I went through.
Did he rape you at that point?
Yeah.
Did he hit you?
He hit me twice because he started to do other sexual performances on me that caused for screaming.
I have to say, on a personal note, that listening to this was absolutely devastating. As Michelle shared her story, it really became clear how from the very start, Ariel Castro wielded not just physical violence, but also psychological torment in an attempt to break her spirit. Not only was he assaulting her, but he was also playing very cruel mind games. He told her that her fate was in God's hands, even though he was the one holding her captive, and claimed he would only release her after abducting 2 more victims. In doing this, he was accomplishing 2 sinister things: absolving himself of any guilt by implying that her survival was up to God, and forcing her to carry the unbearable weight of believing that her freedom depended on the suffering of others. Can you imagine the sheer terror and guilt that would come from hearing those words? And in order to do that, you have to really put yourself in her shoes. That takes a degree of empathy into a very painful situation. You have to stand in her shoes and imagine that you're young, you're powerless, and you're hopeless. But there's another level of being forlorn, and that level is a feeling of learned helplessness. You've learned that no matter what you do, you cannot impact the outcome of your circumstance and situation. That it's really, as he was telling her, in God's hands. He's telling her, you're not on the news. Nobody's looking for you. You've been forgotten. The only way this is going to change is when I abduct 2 other girls. So she's thinking, okay, I'm going through all this suffering, but to get out, others are going to have to go through what I'm going through. And I don't want that. I don't want to have others suffer, but I don't know how much of this I can take. I deeply admired Michelle's courage for even attempting to use those pliers and wire cutters and seize a chance to escape. She must have been absolutely terrified, yet she still found the strength to try. And it's completely understandable that she found escaping for years just impossible. I always say this when you're a victim in a situation like that. Your sole mission is to survive. Whatever it takes, however you can, survival becomes the only thing that matters. Coming up, Michelle fights to survive as Castro's manipulation deepens. She uses her instincts to try to outsmart him, but will it be enough to stay alive? I used to sleep terribly, but thankfully I found Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend that's packed with ingredients shown to improve sleep. Plus, Beam is founded in America and run by people who share our values like hard work and integrity. Their Dream Powder is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. Beam's already improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep, helping people wake up and feel their best. Here's the deal. Beam's giving my listeners the ultimate Patriot discount of up to 40% off so you can try their best-selling Dream Powder. Visit shopbeam.com/DrPhil and use code DrPhil at checkout for up to 40% off. That's shopbeam.com/DrPhil. Code DrPhil for up to 40% off. Support an American company. Invest in yourself and get your best sleep tonight. The first 3 weeks Michelle was in that hellhole, Castro forced her to wear a huge, filthy chain, something that looked straight out of the Middle Ages. For weeks, he kept her chained to a pole. As Michelle and I examined a photo of the pole that had been taken into evidence, I felt a wave of disgust. It made my stomach turn that someone was capable of treating a woman, any living being for that matter, in such a horrific fashion. There were places on the pole where the paint was chipped from where she was chained up. Castro treated Michelle like she was not even human. Everything he did was an effort to strip away her dignity and humanity. He robbed her of even the most basic rights. How did you go to the bathroom?
He'll give me something like a bucket with a lid on it.
How long would he leave you there alone?
Almost all day, but he always came home drunk.
What would he do without having to be in detail?
He'll hit me. He'll drag me by the chain, stuff like that. There's this one show that he watched constantly. It was about people that, have really bad sexual problems. And he'll watch it and then he'll want to do exactly what he sees on TV to other people. One of the fetishes was sexual pleasure was choking.
So would he choke himself sometimes?
No.
Always you? Mm-hmm. When you were in the basement chained to the pole, did he leave clothes on you?
At that time, the only thing I had on was a t-shirt and a pair of underwear. That's it.
This is that downstairs area?
Yeah. That's a very ugly whip in the side corner. Looking at that made me remember him whooping me with that.
He would beat you with that? When you were down there, was it generally in the dark?
There was no light at all.
And you just laid on the concrete floor in the dark?
Well, it's kind of like being like this, because I couldn't lay down, because the pole will hold me up.
Because of the chain around your neck? But you were able to sleep some?
No, I just mainly passed out from the chain being around my neck.
Many times Michelle would hear other people in his house, but to keep her quiet, Castro would stuff a dirty sock in her mouth, then seal her lips shut with duct tape. And as if this brutality wasn't enough, Castro also made it clear that if she dared to try to escape, he would either beat her savagely, sexually assault her, or even murder her. Now, while there were other times that Michelle did try to escape, she never had enough time to get away with it before Castro came to check on her. So Michelle did what she had to do for herself and for her baby boy she knew was on the outside. That's who and what she had to live for. That child was what kept her from giving up. So Michelle tried to appease her kidnapper. She tried to get him to trust her. You said that he told you, I'm going to keep you chained to this pole until I can trust you.
Yeah.
Define trust. What did he mean?
Until I submitted to him and I did nothing wrong, like trying to escape.
And so what would you do to try to make him less suspicious, to make him trust you more?
I would like change things that I said, and I'll be like, well, you're not bad, you're just a little abnormal, and it's okay, everybody does something wrong. I would let him know that there's like places out there for him to go where he can get help and he don't have to do this anymore.
That was a brilliant strategy, very smart. The FBI interrogators will tell you one of the best things to do is trivialize what they've done. It seemed to work because at some point he did move you from the basement, right?
Yes. But then when I got up there, it was like he turned into Jekyll and Hyde. He'll start saying things like, you did something wrong. If you do something wrong again, I'm gonna hurt you. It's like, who are you talking to? I didn't do anything. And then I'll be like this, well, we could watch a movie together. I'll turn it around and I'll make him feel like I want him in the room.
You could defuse him sometimes.
Yes.
Right. You know, we hear all kinds of things like Stockholm Syndrome, which has been debated as to whether it's real or not, but there is a mindset that supports survival where the captive tries to appease their captor. I told Michelle I was impressed at her ability to look this tyrant, this utter monster in the face and use her smarts to stay alive. Her intuition and intelligence were very much underestimated. She used these qualities to stay alive, even in the face of evil. And what I'm talking about is her ability to read his need to feel powerful, his need to feel omnipotent. And the strategic appeasement that Michelle carefully crafted was an illusion at times, trying to make it seem as though she wanted him near her. She worked to convince him that she wasn't afraid or repulsed by him, despite the horrors he had inflicted upon her. It was a calculated move to do two things. One was to keep herself alive, and the other was to slowly disarm him, where he would begin, through his delusional thinking, to think, hey, she wants to be here. I don't have to watch her so vigilantly. And in a sense, begin to trust that maybe she wouldn't run away. Maybe he didn't have to keep her on such a short leash, at times figuratively, but at times literally. As I told Michelle, this is a tactic often discussed by FBI investigators. Trivializing the abuser's actions can sometimes be a key to survival. She just instinctively knew that no one was coming to rescue her. She had to make him believe that she was no threat to him. She was no threat to run away. That in a sense, he had won her over. That she was on his side. But beyond that, she did something even more incredible. She had the courage to plant the idea in his twisted mind that he could change, that he could stop being a monster, that he could stop the behaviors and mood swings that were so erratic and so unpredictable. She never knew when or why he would snap. To survive, she had to remain hyper-aware, constantly observing his emotions, knowing when to push, knowing when to pull back. She had to soothe him, endure his violence, all of his assaults, anything to prevent him from actually killing her and just dragging her body out during the night. Every moment she had to be thinking, manipulating, and playing this chess game that was actually a battle for survival. This is something that you have to understand she's doing when she thinks, look, nobody's coming. I have to depend on myself here. I've got this lunatic that is just as apt to tie me up and hang me from the ceiling or chain me to a pole, but I've got to figure out how I can get him to see me differently, start seeing himself differently, maybe even seeing me as an ally, and normalize this situation to where maybe, just maybe, he will take his guard down. You've got to realize this is not a typical situation. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years. So this is a long con on her part. She's reeling him in very, very slowly. Up next, Michelle is no longer alone. Ariel Castro brings home a second victim, Amanda Berry. How did he manage to lure yet another young girl into his trap? And what did this mean for Michelle? War in Iran is rattling global markets. Oil's surging, inflation looms, and economic uncertainty threatens your savings. If Iran blocks the Strait of Hormuz, prices could soar and your money could lose value fast. So don't wait and hope. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and it's the only precious metals firm I recommend to family, friends, and you. Their integrity and expertise give me peace of mind. Secure what you've earned now with a partner you can trust. Text DrPhil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. Gold prices are already breaking records, and with analysts predicting more gains ahead, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 in free silver with a qualified purchase. Text DrPhil to 50505 now before the next shock hits. So at this point in Michelle's story, she's still the only captive. The isolation, the searing fear she felt was endless. Castro had let her out of the basement by this time. So now she was chained to a bed in an upstairs bedroom with boarded up windows. She couldn't see the sky. There was barely any light. She was in a dark prison, but think about it. This is progress in her mind. She starts out in a dungeon, but what she's doing is working. He's brought her out of the dungeon and up into the actual house. So she's making progress. On the other hand, if you can imagine, he didn't let her shower for 8 months. She was still forced to use a bucket as a bathroom. And remember, this is Cleveland. It gets freezing there in the wintertime. And Castro wouldn't turn the heat on for her. She recalled her lips turning blue, her body convulsing in shivers, basically naked with only one sheet for warmth. And when Castro wanted to punish Michelle further, he would return her to that dark, cold cement basement floor where she had to be chained as well. Worse, when Castro sexually assaulted Michelle, it would often last for hours at a time. Sometimes he would leave her only to return after a break to resume the torture. Now, I don't want you to traumatize yourself, but to understand what she's going through, you have to kind of put yourself in her position. She feels totally alone. Her child seems in a world far, far away. She's cold, she's hungry, she's naked, she's alone, she's being brutalized for hours at a time, but yet she has to handle this guy in a way that he stops short of actually killing her, because he clearly has such poor impulse control that at any time, if she says the wrong thing, shows the wrong expression, jerks away, does something that sets him off, he could smash her head into that pole or into that concrete floor. Her will to live, her will to think and fight to stay alive is humbling. As if the physical and psychological torment weren't enough, Castro took his cruelty even further by relentlessly taunting Michelle. He repeatedly told her she was worthless, that no one cared about her or even noticed she was gone. But his most twisted manipulation came during the holidays, when he used the one thing she cherished most, her son. He used her son as a weapon against her. He mocked her for missing Christmas with him, cruelly dangling false hope by saying she'd only see him again if he, Castro, allowed it. Other times he shattered her completely, telling her she would never see her child again, not ever. Michelle told me that when she asked him why did all of these horrible things happen to her, he said, it's because he hated her. Now, there's a lot of sexual assault and abuse obviously going on here. As I said, for hours at a time. But you have to remember that when there's sexual assault going on like this, it's truly all about power. There's a false sense of superiority. These captors have to set this up in this dark fantasy world because they can never attain any kind of healthy relationship in the real world. They can't get to equal footing. They can't even get to a dominant role in a relationship with a healthy person. They maintain power over their victims through a variety of tactics in a blend of subtle and obvious control. And the number one thing captors want to do is isolate their victims from any external contact that could be a support system for them. Family, friends, any source of support to make it harder for them to seek help and gain perspective on the situation. They could never allow them to even see pictures of family. They couldn't allow them to even anonymously talk to a church or church members or abuse hotline or anything of the sort. They have to keep them isolated because only when they're alone, only when they can strip hope away from them, can they get the kind of power and control they're looking for. Physical and emotional threats and then actual violence and the fear of those abuses being repeated are used to instill deep fear and ensure total compliance. The idea is to take away hope, make them feel helpless, and then deliver pain on a random basis so it's not predictable, so they can't adapt to it. And captors can manipulate victims through gaslighting them, guilt-tripping them, exploiting their vulnerabilities. That way they control their emotions and actions, and they control those levers. To do that, it has to be unpredictable. It has to be random. In Michelle's case, Castro would viciously refer to her not being able to have access to her son and that no one cared where she was. When that happens, you feel like, hey, My parents aren't looking for me. There aren't any posters on telephone poles looking for me. Have you seen this girl? I'm not on a milk carton. Nobody's looking for me. I'm an environmental non-event. I don't count. He could kill me tomorrow and nobody would even notice. They probably think I'm dead already or ran away. So to maintain that illusion, you have to have control of resources and information. If you can control the very things that are necessary to stay alive, food, water, sleep, all of those things that are necessary to exist, you've got tremendous power. If you can strip them of their worldly possessions so their identity is gone, you put them in different clothes, you put them in oversized clothes, you put them in no clothes, everything that they identified with from their lives are gone. Their favorite shirt's gone, their favorite shoes are gone. Everything that they could imagine that ties them back to their identity is stripped away. And then you take away any lifeline to information. It's like you put them in a deprivation chamber. Think about if all of a sudden you had these big earmuffs on and you couldn't hear anything, and somebody cut a ping pong ball in half and put each half over your eyes so all you saw was this opaque whiteness. You couldn't see anything. There was no information getting to you. You didn't know anything that was going on in the world. You didn't know if there was a fire in town. You didn't know who had been elected president. You didn't know if you were on the news that people were looking for you. You didn't know anything that was happening. You now have immense power over your victims' daily lives and their will to escape. Escape to what? That world starts to fade really fast, and the only existence you know is in the moment you're living, the moment right before that, and the next moment coming up. Your world view becomes very small. Your memories are fading. Your vision of the future just doesn't exist. You're living moment to moment to moment. The arc of your life becomes very short. And if Michelle didn't do everything to Castro's specifications, then he would withhold the things that most of us humans take for granted. A blanket, clothes, food, even the ability to clean your body. Captors may take advantage of victims' addictions, vulnerabilities, past trauma, things that they bring into the captive situation with them, and further entrench them in the situation. And think about this. Michelle's childhood, according to her, was very traumatic. And Castro threw in her face all of her history any chance he got. Anything he could learn from her, anything he could extract from her. If she was crying and said, I need my baby, they took my baby away, I've got to get to my baby. Oh, really? Why'd they take your baby away? Well, and maybe she discloses something. He files that away and uses it against her. You failed so much, you couldn't even keep your baby. They took your baby away. You didn't protect your baby. And every time he gets a chance, every time he needs to put her down, he pulls those things that he's extracted from her and beats her up with them. Throughout her captivity, Castro would impregnate her by raping her and then brutally terminate her pregnancy through physical abuse. And this happened repeatedly. Here's Michelle telling me about the first occurrence. Did you ever get pregnant with him that first year?
Yeah.
So tell me about this first time that you figure out you're pregnant. Did he figure it out too?
Yeah. I didn't tell him. I didn't want to. I was scared. And then finally, he was like, I think you are pregnant. And then I was like, okay, what do you want me to do about that? He was like, I'm gonna do something about it. That's when he punched me in my stomach.
How did he do that?
I was standing up and he punched me with a barbell. He took the round part and he went like this. And he made it go up so I could hit the lower area of my stomach. I fell to the floor.
He just knocked you down. What did he say?
And he said, tomorrow it better be gone. That's all he said. And then when I did miscarry, he blamed me. He said I hated him, that I killed his kid. And he punched me in the face, saying that it was all my fault.
How horrific is that? And notice this pathetic excuse for a man. He kidnaps a woman, holds her captive, rapes her repeatedly, impregnates her against her will, and then violently beats her, causing a brutal miscarriage. And yet, he says to Michelle, it's your fault. It's your fault you got pregnant. It's your fault I had to beat you to get that over with. Despicable. And speaks further to his narcissism and his sadistic nature. And when I say narcissism, remember, I said no empathy. You see things only from your point of view. It's inconvenient to me that you got pregnant. How dare you do that? I need you to not be pregnant. I will beat you until you aren't, because you're inconveniencing me and I am entitled to have what I want. That's how he looks at it. He doesn't look at the fact that this is a human being with child. He looks at it as, I am inconvenienced by you having the failure of getting pregnant. You can't serve me as well. Castro wanted Michelle to be completely at his mercy in another moment of violent rage, and I have to warn you, this is horrible. He killed Michelle's dog, the dog he actually gave her that she had come to love in captivity and to look to for comfort. Remember when he got her into the house, he said, let's see the puppies, they're upstairs. He actually at one point gave her one. Michelle said this dog tried to protect her and bit Castro. And he grabbed that dog and snapped its neck right in front of her. And then buried him in the backyard. Michelle's one joy, that sweet dog, snatched it from her and killed it right in front of her. Now, in both these instances, these unspeakable acts that Castro committed, if we're to peek into his psychology, this is him thinking he can play God. In this crumbling house, what he says goes, and more importantly, he decides who lives and who dies. This is his dominion, tucked away from the outside world. Clearly, there's also a jealousy factor at play. Michelle loved this dog, and he just couldn't abide this dog sticking around. It gave her comfort. She showed love and affection to this dog, and he just could not abide that. The dog took attention away from Castro, and a narcissist has to be the star, not some of the time, all the time, every minute of every hour of every day. He will not share the spotlight with anyone, even a dog. We've gone through 8 months here. What tipped you off that you weren't the first girl that he had done this to?
He kept on repeating, don't think you're the only one. And he kept on repeating it and repeating it. And then he showed me an area that's in his basement that says rest in peace. But the name he scribbled out, I couldn't really see because I didn't have glasses.
Right. Tell me about him telling you that he was hunting for replacements.
He will always say, I seen this girl, I'm just sad that I didn't get her in my car. He would let me know what girl he was trying to abduct and where she worked.
On April 21st of that year, the day before Amanda Berry turned 17, she was walking home from her job when Castro approached her in his car. Like Michelle, Amanda knew one of Castro's daughters. So, she accepted his offer of a ride. It's almost impossible to comprehend this man had no hesitation about kidnapping girls who were acquaintances of his own daughters. But to him, these young women from the neighborhood were easy targets, vulnerable, and within his reach. When Castro first brought Amanda back to the house, Michelle understood once again that when he made a sinister promise, she could count on him staying true to his word. Castro kept Amanda and Michelle in separate rooms and was wary of letting them spend too much time alone together. Here's what Michelle had to say about her interactions with Amanda during that early time.
I didn't see the chain until she moved her leg because it was around her ankle.
But she was chained.
Mm-hmm.
Did you talk to her then? Were you ever alone?
No, never alone.
At that point, at least?
Always with him.
So how often in these ensuing months did you see Amanda?
Not that often. And when we did, it was like a quick hug and bye because he wouldn't let us stay in the same room for that long.
And when he would leave for work, did you two yell out to each other?
No, we weren't allowed. I'm pretty sure if we did, we would have got in trouble.
So you didn't know if he was there or gone or?
But if her mom was on TV or something, I would blast my TV so she can hear me, so she can turn on hers. And then I'll quickly turn it down because you never know when he's there.
And if you do something wrong, if you do something defiant, then you're going to get hurt. How many times did you see her during that first year?
Maybe 6 or 7 times. And sometimes she would cry. And I'll tell her everything will be okay. And that one day we'll get home. We just have to, wait it out.
So, Castro finally acted on his sick urge. The one he had been telling Michelle about repeatedly. He had yearned for another female prisoner, and he went out and got one. Now, let's break this down for a minute. Why did he want multiple captives? Look, his appetite, his ego needed to be fed, and one victim, one captive, it just wasn't enough. He tormented Michelle endlessly, doing whatever he pleased, but for him, still, it wasn't enough. A predator is never satisfied. People like Castro who exhibit traits of sociopathy, well, they bore easily. The excitement wanes. They crave new thrills, no matter how twisted, to stay engaged. It's like a shark that never stops swimming. Castro was already hunting for his next victim, eager to add another young woman to his so-called collection. There was a pattern of predation. Castro had already told Michelle she wasn't his first victim. And we don't know if that's true or if he said it to scare her. Regardless, he was now compelled to repeat this pattern. This wasn't just a crime. This was a defining obsession. He had an insatiable urge a need to satisfy his depraved hunger for control. He had done it once with Michelle and got away with it. Maybe he had done it before, we don't know. But we do know that he had succeeded in abducting Michelle and getting away with it for a period of time. So he's now thriving on power. And for someone like him, dominance was everything. He relished the idea of multiple women trapped under his rule, utterly dependent on him, living in constant fear. The more power he had over them, the more he fed his twisted ego. And twisted it was. Coming up on the next episode of Mystery and Murder, Ariel Castro kidnaps yet a third victim, Gina De Jesus. And these three young women spent more than a decade as prisoners in Castro's home. That's all coming up next on Mystery and Murder. I'm DrPhil. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you can reach out to the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE. That's 1-800-656-4673. This hotline is operated by RAINN, RAINN, and connects you with local sexual assault service providers who can offer free, confidential support and resources.